You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. Guys, what is James Gunn thinking? Also, what is Santa up to? And will Santa Claus truly deck your halls? Let's find out. This is Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks, back with another What's New episode. I'm one of your co-hosts, Joshua Knoll. I am here with the one and only Joe Day. Also, the other one and only, Christian Ashley. We're going to be discussing today what's going on in the world of DC, both movies and comics. We're going to talk about the Santa Claus's finale. We're going to talk about Violent Night. And if we have time, we're going to talk about some controversy with the Hogwarts Legacy game. If we don't have time, it'll be in the next What's New. So just, hang in there. It'll happen eventually. That being said, guys, y'all ready to jump into this?
Yep.
All right. First up, I don't think anybody, I think we might get hate letters if we make them wait to the end before we talk about it. So let's start with, Joe, what is James Gunn doing in the DCEU right now? Like, who's getting fired, who's staying, and why?
So it's funny, news broke about what's going on over at DC, and immediately I hit up the team and was like, okay, so when's the next What's New? Because I need to get on here and talk about this. So it was announced by James Gunn that they are moving forward without Henry Cavill. Boo. And that the idea is that they are wholesale rebooting the Snyderverse. And they are starting with a fresh take forward. And there have been grumblings that one of the major story beats that is going to somehow be at the center of the overarching story that James Gunn wants to tell is Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come is one of the most famous DC stories that there is. So that part of it has me super excited, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've never seen as quick a backlash as what happened when it was announced that they're not moving forward with Supes. Because everybody's like, oh, we finally have our Kevin Feige. And then he announces this. Now, it would seem, and there's some controversy also tied into this with Black Adam, that apparently The Rock may have fudged some numbers with stating how well Black Adam did. I personally don't care either way. That is the single greatest comic book movie ever made. I said what I said. Fight me. That being said, though, it's unclear exactly who's staying, who's going. There's a lot of ambiguity around the whole thing. James Gunn stepped forward and announced specifically that Henry Cavill is not going to be a part of it. Now, part of where the controversy is coming is that Warner Brothers basically stuck him on the shelf after Man of Steel and BVS didn't do very well. You can have your own opinions about the Snyderverse. I've shared mine. Back in the early days of SG, we did an episode that giving flowers to the Snyderverse and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not against rebooting everything, but the problem is two of the main three, you literally have the perfect actors for them already. Now, mind you, Ben Affleck, he's grown on me as far as his rendition of Batman. It's not a typical Batman. You have to be aware of Frank Miller's Batman to really understand what's actually happening with his version of the Bat. But those two, the other two, Supes and Wonder Woman, it might be recency biased, but I challenge anybody to find a better actor for either of those two roles. I think those two do such a great job at it, and I'm all for this clear heading of a set path forward. But I think one of the most frustrating things with what's happening is James Gunn knows how to stir the pot. He knows how to get clicks. He knows how to get people talking and all of that kind of stuff. The problem becomes is that you just dumped a whole lot of money into telling us that Henry Cavill's back. But now you're turning around and saying that he's not. And so I I think that greater swerves have happened. So I there's a part of me that's a little tempted to say, what if we're all getting swerved? But I would say pretty categorically with getting rid of them, that's a gigantic mistake.
Yeah, you I see both sides of it. It is hard to reboot and use the same actors and people not expected to just be the same. But also you're not gonna find a better Superman. Like I can't see it. I just don't see it. Um, and part of the backlash that I've heard with it, which is what I kind of wanted your take on, because I might have just misunderstood, but it seems like they're rebooting all of the characters, except for Shazam, who happened to be in one of the new people who's leading this thing's movies, and also except for some of the Suicide Squad, like Peacemaker, who was James Gunn's movie. So it's kind of suspicious that everything's getting axed, but their stuff. Is that accurate?
Um, I mean, ki- kind of, but I'm not sure that there's that much meat on that particular bone. And
Okay.
I think part of the issue is that we remember the last 10 years through rose-colored glasses, right? I'm going to shoot hard on the MCU for a second. Everybody looks at what the MCU became and then tries to retrofit that into that's what the MCU always was. The MCU was not always that. It was not always this well oiled machine and all of that kind of stuff. They didn't even know in the first round of movies whether or not this was going to be successful. They just threw lines out in the water. And there was confusion and there was lack of communication at first and all of that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it was very clunky at first, especially with the first continuation of what was built. And this is what I mean. You have phase one, it's introductory, right? You've got your Hulk, you've got your Captain America, you've
Mm-hmm.
got your Thor, you've got your Iron Man, you've got the origin stories. Everybody loves a good origin story, right? Let's now talk about some of the sequels, right? Iron Man 2 is uh not good. Um Thor 2 also not good. And so you have that, right? And I bring this up for a reason. I don't want to get lost in the sauce as far as talking about the MCU, but I bring this up for a reason. There's this misconception about the fluidity of how we have gotten the Marvel movies, coupled with the fact that there was never a sense of doing something larger with WB. Warner Brothers has consistently made misstep after misstep after misstep. Remember, Marvel was coming from a blank slate. And I would argue that they're coming with a net positive because, like them or not, our first set of like kind of the grandfather of the modern superhero movie, those were Marvel properties. Plus or minus the Nolan trilogy, you've got Spider-Man, you've got the X-Men. And yeah, they've got their highs and their lows, but for a lot of people, their Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire. Like my Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire. Josh is wrong. We're not going to go there, but Josh is wrong. Just know that Josh is wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's so they're coming from a net positive. With when you talk about DC, you talk about this. They're not coming from a point of good graces, and on top of that, you're talking about a company that has been pretty vocal about chasing the buck over giving something to the fans.
So I will just briefly say I categorically disagree with most of the Marvel opinions thrown out there. Most of Phase 2 was better than Phase 1. Um,
Oh, I didn't say
but
that they were better that they were better or worse. I'm just saying that
oh no,
the second wave was not that good.
I just mean Iron Man 2 was the best Iron Man movie. And what were the other ones? I actually really liked Thor 2 as well.
Okay,
Also,
now that's a bad opinion.
yeah, no, that one
That's
is.
a really bad
Most
opinion.
importantly, it gave us the Winter Soldier, which was the best of all of the MCU movies. Sorry. let's see, where were we? Okay, sorry, we spent longer on this than I had planned to, but it's an important thing to think through, especially when Marvel was able to start when all our standard was, oh my god, they got Captain America right. We didn't care about the story or anything. It was, oh, they actually did it right. That was it. That was the whole standard. And things have changed since then. So DC's getting a start at a harder time, and show some grace. Show some grace. I didn't love a lot of the Snyderverse, but I'm not familiar with the comics. It's just kind of I didn't really like these characters in movies as much. I loved some of the actors. I loved that Superman. I love that Wonder Woman. I love that Aquaman. I don't love the Flash, but hang in there. Also, you know who I do love from DC Comics that I'm confused about, and I'm gonna throw this, and then we're gonna move on to the next thing. Blue Beetle. I've always loved Blue Beetle. They're still making that movie. Is that gonna be like canon? Is that gonna just be something that's like a one-off, and we're never gonna see him ever again? Or what? Why? Why are they making this right now?
That was already in the pipeline long before. It's similar to the Black. So, for those of you that don't know, The Rock has been attached to Black Adam for something like 7 years. It's been a very long time. It was when he was still making the Fast and Furious movies that he said, "Look, my next 7 years worth of movies are pretty much full up, but then we're going to be shooting on Black Adam," and that's pretty much exactly what ended up happening. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think with Marvel, they've been so focused on building a shared universe, and they've done exactly that. And then on top of it had the power of the mouse behind them. Let's not lose the rabbit on that one. The mouse bought them. That's part of the reason why you have the MCU that you have, is because of the mouse. DC doesn't have the backing of somebody like the mouse. And so you are talking about this entertainment juggernaut that's willing to dump millions upon millions upon millions into these movies. But the thing that you have to keep into consideration about this whole thing is what has happened, right? What has happened now at this point? Everybody has the same complaints. It's all formulaic. You've got to watch 87 TV shows in order to understand what's going on in a movie and all of that kind of stuff. So how about let's let them get off a go, right? Because you look at somebody like James Gunn, and I'm of two minds, because I see the nonsense. I think it was handled poorly. I think everybody associated with DC needs to get a lesson in PR, right? Like the one thing I will give to Marvel is they've always had a centralized voice. They have not had that with DC. And so I think part of the issue is their own making as far as how they've handled all of this kind of stuff, because who knows, maybe James Gunn will create something stellar. Maybe he will put something out there that's absolutely out of this world. But the thing that we need to realize is that the Snyderverse was over already.
Yeah. That being said, we need to be able to go on. I'm hoping that James Gunn does not try to do a series of origin movies. I don't think that works in today's world. You got to start further into the story. We'll see what happens. James Gunn has done great stuff with both Marvel and DC. The Peacemaker show was fantastic. So the next thing also goes to Joe, and I'm hoping we can get through this one a little bit quicker. I think you wanted to mention some about what's on the horizons in DC Comics as well, right?
The one thing, as it pertains to DC Comics, one thing that I really hope happens is that there's some effort put behind advertising, right? There are these events going on in DC Comics and all of that it really one part of what James Gunn is saying is that everything is going to be connected. That the whole thing, they are trying to create a shared multiverse where they are openly stating that the comics are part of the multiverse, the movies are part of the multiverse. It's what eventually Marvel ended up doing, but they weren't very quick to get there. And part of what I really hope to see happen is advertising for the comics, so that way people have a better idea of what's going on, because There's absolutely none. Nobody's advertising right now, and the comic book industry is down because of it.
Yeah, and that being said, DC's got the most exciting event on the horizon for me with the Lazarus Planet stuff. Looks pretty cool. Look into it. Yeah, I also, when we're talking about the multiverse, I'm really hopeful because the Flash TV show is ending that maybe that means they can do something else with that Flash. Who knows? I would like that. But we've mentioned on the What's New before, I've mentioned this Santa Clauses. I've talked about it a couple different times, and I told you guys that my rating at one point was going to be a 7 or an 8, and it could either go down to a 3 or up higher to like a 9, depending on the ending. And the ending is here, and it definitely brought my opinion down lower.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It was not a terrible ending, and the very next day I understood why they did the ending the way they did. I was hoping for them to pass on the torch well. I was hoping to see, because they were wrestling with these ideas of, can a woman be Santa Claus, or why is Mrs. Claus this? They were wrestling with ideas of maybe even having a different ethnicity be Santa Claus, and they're kind of showing these things, and then the ending comes around and it's, actually, Tim Allen was wrong. He shouldn't leave. And it's kind of like, wait, what? So you sat there this whole season wrestling with these ideas that were actually really interesting and propelling something, and then decided, never mind. And I was really aggravated about that. And then the next day they announced that season 2 was coming next year. And I was like, oh, of course it is. No wonder you couldn't pass on the torch, because having a season 2 with Tim Allen means more money, and Disney likes money. So to me, it really felt like they kind of sacrificed the story for the sake of having a season 2. I was kind of disappointed by that. A lot of people weren't. A lot of people are glad that Tim Allen's still Santa Claus, because that's their Santa Claus. Just like, some people's Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire. Some people's Santa Claus is Tim Allen. I was disappointed, but I did like the fact that they brought up a different question, and that was also there throughout the season of, how do you retire from something like being Santa Claus, of doing the most good that anyone can do in the world, right? Of just giving to children. How do you take a family who's known this kind of world and bring them to the real world? All this, like, there are questions like that, especially when you're thinking of ministers. It is interesting to contemplate, how do you retire from ministry? I mean, you're stepping down from helping people, really? It is a hard question to deal with. Maybe they'll explore that further in the next season. That would be kind of cool. I still feel like it was a little bit of a cop-out, but I don't know. I wasn't satisfied, even though I do like the question of, how do you know when it's truly your time to pass on the torch and when it's not?
Yeah. So after all this, do you still feel hopeful about a season 2 nailing the landing?
Nope. I've now given up hope. The second to last episode of the Santa Clauses was fantastic. Just stop watching after that. Let it be a cliffhanger and be happy with yourself. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. All right. Well, that being said, Christian, you wanted to talk about Violent Night.
Indeed, I do. And let me apologize to all the listeners right now for the sound of my voice. It wasn't that great to begin with, but I'm currently dying of the black lung pop. So I'm going to try and get through this without coughing immensely.
Oh.
So Violent Night, to those of you who don't know what it's about, is basically Die Hard Home Alone with Santa Claus trying to save a multimillionaire family from being attacked by a bunch of mercenaries who want money that they have hidden within their home. And it lives up to its name. It is incredibly violent and gory, and it is a ton of fun. And when
it sounds so bad that it would be good.
It is definitely one of those movies I did not have to turn my brain on to enjoy it. I just watched what was on the screen. And you know what? As someone who's always very critically minded like me, it's nice every now and then just to like accept what I'm watching and deal with the consequences. So I really enjoyed that. Now, as far as everything else goes, the other reason I wanted to bring it up when Josh had asked me to come on to this episode was because I saw some of the Christian response to it. And I don't know why I keep setting myself up for failure, but that's just the world we live in. And of course, there were Not as many as past stuff, but there was some protests. There were people up in arms. You're like, how could you have this sacred holiday ruined by this? Forgetting the fact that we're talking about the mythological figure Santa Claus and not Saint Nicholas, he who punched Aryans as they rightfully deserved near Nicaea.
Indeed.
So I did want to talk about with you guys, like, how do you feel about a movie that would take a more mature, not necessarily grimdark, view of the Santa Claus and Christmas mythos on screen?
I don't understand why people are up in arms about this. Like, there's Silent Night, Deadly Night, Santa Sleigh, Black Christmas. Festive horror has been a genre for, I don't know, since at least the 70s. Some horror head some places yelling at their device right now, but I want to say the earliest one that I can think of having seen is the 70s. So for those of you that don't know, I am SG's resident horror head. I don't get a chance to talk about it very often because I haven't had anybody to talk to since Brandon left the show. So
you have a friend in me, Joe.
I mean, awesome. Yeah. I haven't necessarily seen a lot of the backlash about this one in particular, but it seems to me like just getting up in arms about, like, and like the Christian response to it being angry. Like, the Christian response shouldn't agree with Santa Claus to begin with, let alone like a killer Santa Claus. Like, I don't know. It's a movie. Oh, yeah. It's a movie. Like, shut your brain off and watch the movie. Like, but we're cool with watching superpowered beings beat the tar out of each other and all of that kind of stuff. But this is a bridge too far. Are you outside yourself? Like, we all cheered. You even said it during the DC talk. Peacemaker was this awesome TV show. I hated Peacemaker, first off.
Really?
I don't like 14-year-old boy humor. And it was all 14-year-old boy humor. It's the same thing why I don't like Invincible. Is that what it is? The Boys,
really?
That one too. Movie. Those all suck. They're terrible.
Invincible does not have the 14-year-old boy humor.
I mean, I was 14-year-old boy and enjoyed watching superheroes, beat each other to death and all of that kind of stuff too. Like, no, that's young. That's a different version of 14-year-old boy humor. Anyway, that to me is such an arbitrary line to then pick a fight with a genre that's centered around death and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, you have a superpowered being that punches somebody in the face. What do you think is going to happen? I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, my take was very different. My first thought is just more of a, this is funny, like not different as in disagreeing. I just was thinking in a different lane, because I was thinking more of a, how cool it would be if we had significantly more like biblically accurate movies that would all be very R-rated. Like, I'm sorry, you really think the Romans had clean language when they were crucifying people?
Right.
Come on now.
I mean, even just the biopic on David's life alone would be one of the, to be the Game of Thrones of that era.
Yeah. Also, I know of a Thanksgiving horror movie that is so bad that I refuse to say the name of it. I will put it in our chat for the other host, but I don't want anyone to ever go see that. So I refuse to say it, but it was the worst thing I've ever seen.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's better kept to yourself.
Yeah, super inappropriate, super not good to watch. Like, it just was not enjoyable. But as far as like violence in Christmas, like, I'm with Joe, and like who cares? Like, it's not any different than a super person doing it. My biggest concern is I think Christians just get mad about satire. Like, I feel like for whatever reason, church culture seems to be incapable of understanding the entire genre of satire, which is what a lot of the Violent Night is supposed to be, from my understanding. It's also what a lot of Invincible is, which is why I don't think it's 14-year-old stuff, because it's a lot more of a, hey, the superhero genre is kind of stupid. And it's true. Sometimes it's okay to take these things that you hold dear and close to yourself, whether it be Christmas or superheroes or whatever, and to just make fun of it. If I was incapable of being that, it would just be depressing to be the Josh with bad opinions. Luckily, I'm capable enough of laughing at myself that, hey, yeah, I do have terrible opinions. I do want to go watch Thor: The Dark World as soon as we're done recording, because I remembered how much I enjoy it. And that is a terrible opinion.
And honestly, for some people look at me and say, my terrible opinion is that that Black Adam is the single greatest comic book movie ever made. But that also comes with all of the preamble of why I see those things. Right? It is I am a preacher shepherd that works primarily with Middle Eastern folks. Outside of the U.S., the largest concentration of people that I work with are people from India. The Rock successfully led an all black and brown cast in a movie that had a lot to say about the standard coming in and saying that this is what justice looks like, and now we're going to come in and save the day, and all of that kind of stuff. There's layers to this movie. Is it the best inside of a Marvel this or that, or does it have this formula or whatever? No, it doesn't have those things. But outside of that, if that's not the criteria that we're judging it off of, if we're judging it off of the criteria of the story told, aces. I just want another opportunity to sing the praises of Black Adam. Now I'll be done.
At risk of starting something with Joe, just to give my own take on Black Adam, because I just watched it like yesterday.
Bruh.
I think I would have it as like one of the most average movies to me, but here's the big caveat, because to me it felt very much like the same story as Black Panther, but Black Panther as a character is basically just Captain America with a different suit. Black Adam, the character, is one of the most intriguing characters I've seen in any superhero film. Like the character himself, I want more of. I want so much more of, and I'm really upset that we're not going to get that.
Can I say one more spicy thing so that way I can
Yes.
cement the heel turn of this episode and I can be the heel? All right. Wait for it. Black Adam did it second and better. There we go.
Ooh.
Okay. So with all that in mind, how do we as Christians handle the fact that there will be people in our congregations, not the pearl clutching types, like the ones who have a serious, like, I cannot allow myself to watch something like this. How do we engage with them on movies? I mean, doesn't have to necessarily be Violent Night, but something akin to it.
Same thing I did with Deadpool. Just cool. Don't watch it. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's an individual thing. And I think that that's where we very seriously lose the rabbit on this whole thing, is the individualistic idea of what a person likes or doesn't like, right? I joke about being the heel of most episodes, or I joke with Josh and I disagreeing with one another, and all of those different things. But opinions are subjective. What you can handle is subjective. If between you and God, it doesn't suit you to watch this movie, guess what, guys? Don't watch the movie. And that's cool. It's aces. Fantastic. If you can watch this, go out and watch it. It's asinine. It's a popcorn flick. It's if you like this sort of thing, I would say watch it, because it's literally right up that lane.
Yeah, and yeah, much like the Deadpool thing, there are those people who you can simply say, yeah, okay, it's not for you. That's fine. It is for me. I enjoy it. What might cause you to stumble doesn't cause me to stumble, whatever. But then there's the people who want to push their own thing on you. And
Right.
there's a lot talked about how to address the person who's pushing, don't watch Deadpool because this is bad. I hear a lot of, well, here's how they should handle this and how they should be better. But let me speak to those of us who are on the side who do watch Deadpool and are getting the yelled at. Sometimes it is just simply okay to just let someone be upset. And the Bible has tons to say about not putting a stumbling block in front of your brother. You don't need to advocate for Deadpool either. You can simply understand that it offends them and not bring it up again. It's that easy. And then also, I'd like to point out, to me, Jesus' whole thing of what goes into a man does not condemn him, but what comes out of a man, I apply that to television and movies too. He didn't have that in his time, but what you watch, what you consume for your IP, is not what's going to condemn you. What comes out of you does.
Right.
So if watching these things causes you to act more violent or for you to talk like Deadpool does in that movie, hey, maybe don't watch it. If it doesn't, cool. Those whom the sun set free are free indeed.
Well said.
Yeah. I think a lot of times on both sides we bring the drama to ourselves in certain regards. You know, I'll speak to my fellow horror heads out there. Like, it's okay that people disagree with you. That is okay. Don't, for as much as you don't want the other person to preach to you about being extra sanctified or extra holy, right? That's usually where that conversation has a way of hanging out, of the people that are trying to add their layer of extra sanctification on top. They might say, okay, well, you can go ahead and do that, but if you want to be holy, you do this thing, you act in this way, whatever. You're by preaching against that and saying that you are wrong for having that opinion, you've put yourself in the exact same boat. You're hanging out in the exact same part of town, just anchoring yourself to the other side of the opinion. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Some people, I've met people who, by every standard and measurement that we are told to look by, I would say have a solid, good relationship with God. They have an active participatory relationship with God, that they can watch horror movies. They can't watch superhero movies because superhero movies are hero worship and all of those kinds of things. And to an extent, you're not wrong. You know what I mean? To an extent, yeah, it is hero worship, and it's in the name. It's a superhero. You know what I mean? Now, I have my own stances and opinions as far as all of that goes, but I can see how somebody lands there. So I think a lot of the time it's much to do with nothing, but also there's the added layer to take back to the position of the horror head and advocating why some of us can be horror heads and all of that, is outside of the second that you claim the name of Christ, you play by an entirely different set of rules. That's an entirely different playbook. That's where I start to care. If you don't claim the name of Christ, I don't care. You're going to go do whatever you're going to go do. Yeah. You're going to sleep with whoever you're going to sleep with. You're going to watch whatever you're going to watch, or you're going to do whatever you're going to do, because you don't have the same playbook. Now we can get into the whole idea of evangelism and spreading the gospel and all of that kind of stuff. But at base minimum, until they claim the name of Christ, they are under no obligation to live by the tenets of Christianity. And so these secular companies, you know, if generic Christian movie production company A makes Violent Night, and or makes some kind of satire and evil Santa and horror movie and all of that kind of stuff, yeah, maybe somebody throw a flag on the play. Maybe somebody say something, because this is coming from a Christian production house. That's not what this company is that's making this movie. So why do we as Christians want to hold the expectation that they're somehow not going to act by the world's standards? That gets into a whole conversation about Christians today having this false identity, or this false idea that we need to, you know, it needs to be Christians. Everything needs to be Christian, and everything's going to be, you know, this idea. And a lot of times this conversation hovers around the topic of politics, but it's the idea that we need to understand that the world is going to do what the world is going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're talking to other Christians, and we're going at this thing, remember, like one of our t-shirts says on our website, systematicgeekology.org, like what you like and don't be a jerk. It's really that simple. And it also can be flipped. Don't like what you don't like and still refrain from being a jerk, please. And, you know, that's just really the beat of it. is learn to love people, learn to show a little bit of grace. Disney productions are going to make Disney movies. Stop being surprised at it. Blumhouse films are going to create Blumhouse films. Let's just stop being surprised when that happens. That would be great.
And God's people said amen.
Let's see if we can squeeze in. I know this is going to be tight, but let's see if we can squeeze in the controversy surrounding Hogwarts Legacy. It is a video game coming out earlier next year that I'm super excited for. It's an open world. You can be a wizard. You can join any of the houses, fly around, do magic stuff, fight things. Usually the controversy with anything Harry Potter is Christians don't like magic. This time, because J.K. Rowling has been doing a series of hate tweets, whatever you want to call them, the controversy largely comes from the other side. And man, she is just getting the worst of both worlds. For those who don't know, I think she's Anglican. She is a Christian. Christians don't like her because she wrote wizard books. And the progressive side hates her because she doesn't agree with transgender stuff. Recently, she retweeted and criticized a very popular trans video gamer and YouTuber, Jesse Earl. Jesse's tweet that she criticized reads, "Any support of the Harry Potter franchise current projects, like while J.K. Rowling is in charge of it, using her ongoing platform to target and also justify her continued targeting of trans people is harmful to trans people." More or less, the argument that Jesse's trying to make as a trans person is, hey, if you got her books and her movies like I did before she started doing all of this, it's fine. But now that we know this about her, we shouldn't support her works because she is still getting money from this video game sales. As Christians, it's really interesting because I'm someone who is going to get the game and enjoy the game. And on one side, I have to deal with Christians who are mad that I like magic. And then on the other side, I have the non-Christians who are mad that I'm supporting someone who is anti-trans stuff. And this is one where I actually disagree with some of my co-hosts on this. When it comes to trans issues, I think Christians are a lot more firm than they really can justify. I also think scientists are a lot more firm than they can justify. I think there should be a lot more room to actually discuss the issues when you're talking about transgender things, because there just isn't as clear as answers as people like to pretend there is. But also, I literally, there's just this level of, unless you're committing huge crimes or seriously injuring people, why are you buying a video game or a book because of the person's morality? That's just so weird to me. I don't watch Disney movies because I think the person who made it is such a fine, great person. I just never quite understood the connection people make there. And yes, there is lines. There is a point where, okay, yeah, no, that is actually a bad thing and I don't want to support that person. But people are entitled to their own opinions. And I don't feel like not buying something or supporting something because someone has an opinion, unless their work is about that opinion, really makes any sense. Now, please criticize me.
Well, what this brings up is the whole trope of the death of the author. It's not a literal death, but it's the idea of this person has said something or done something so horrendous, but I can still enjoy their work. Like Roman Polanski is a terrible person, but Rosemary's Baby is one of the greatest films ever made. And I will stand by that all day.
That movie's so boring. Anyway.
Oh, okay. We'll have that fight later on.
Next verses.
But in the moment there, I can watch Rosemary's Baby and say I don't support what Roman Polanski did.
Yeah.
I agree with Rowling on her views of trans women. I don't think they are women. I think they are still men. However, if she had ended the argument there, we're golden. People are still going to hate her for having that opinion. But what she is doing is trolling people deliberately because, sorry for how I'm going to put this, she has FU money and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
That is my issue. It's we are meant to be ambassadors for Christ. And I don't know where her heart is at. I really hope she is his. But if I am using that as my witness, how effective as a tool am I for showing God's power am I in that moment if I'm choosing to troll people instead of delivering the gospel and truth?
Yeah. I'm inclined to hang out in that part of town. I don't think that there's anything per se that you said, Josh, that is in need of criticism. I I think if you're willing to see it and you're not defaulting back to, if you're taking a thoughtful uh look at the science and the data, I think the science and the data is very clear. I think there's been a lot of science that is very clear. And I understand that there are fringe examples that are being used to kind of bolster the opinion that you can't really depend on the science and the data, but they are exactly that. They are fringe and blown up to accelerate a point. But where it matters is when you are starting to hate another person or hold back from another person or not show that other person love. Shout out to Hector Murray, who is another one of the Christian geeks out there. He's got an organization and all of that, and a very big voice in the Christian geek world. And he just posted a picture of him holding a glass, and on the glass it says, and pardon my language if I'm going to offend somebody, but Jesus loves you, but don't be a douche. And it's like we say, like what you like, but don't be a jerk. It's you can have an opinion, have your opinion, but that your opinion, your stance does not stop you from does not negate the responsibility that we have to love each other, to love people, to show people the love. And that's where I think the conversation that is so incredibly nuanced as far as trans stuff goes. And I think this even goes deeper with the trans conversation part of this whole thing than it even does for the rest of the LGBTQ plus conversation. Look, guys, I'm trying to use the right words. So if I have offended anybody who's listening because I didn't use the right term, please understand that my stance in and of itself is probably enough to be offended at. I'm not trying to be a jerk and misuse terms and things like that. So please have some grace if I've used terms incorrectly. But I think that seems to be more of the sticking point, where because I have this stance, then I need to shove my stance because I need to save you. That's not the name of the game. That's not the name of the game. And I think this conversation that's so nuanced of how do we handle this conversation lives and dies on little quippy things like love is love, or like, you're don't judge not lest you be judged, or these different things where it's all kind of truncated into one little thing that hand waves away the conversation that we can have, but still loving on each other. And that's where the bridge too far is. You can have your stance as far as the science behind it. I counsel anybody that if you are going to stand forward and say one way or the other, whether you are for or against, know what you're talking about, because there are enough people who know what they're talking about that you're very quickly gonna look like an idiot if you don't know what you're talking about. Other than that, like, love people. That tenet doesn't change. We are kingdom citizens, and so yes, it is unfortunate that you see somebody out here proclaiming the name of Christ, but then on top of it having these moments and all of this kind of stuff. That being said, as far as the actual product goes, I'm one that I have a hard time separating art from artist. I'm a huge pro wrestling guy. I grew up enjoying pro wrestling. I will not ever watch another Chris Benoit match. I don't even really like having the conversation. I don't really even like saying the guy's name or giving him anything. Like, I don't understand how people can be like, yeah, but he was a great pro wrestler. Yeah, but he killed his family. You know what I mean? Like the
yeah.
You know what I mean? So but again, that's me. I don't think it necessarily like I think as far as that goes, that's an extreme example. And I think when it comes down to, oh, I'm gonna watch this thing, or I'm not gonna buy this thing, or I'm not gonna do this thing that has nothing to do with the topic. It's just what like the person believes about a certain totally separate issue. I don't know. I would probably say in everything that you said, Josh, that's probably the closest I come to agreeing with what you said.
Yeah. So for me, the trans thing falls squarely in a I don't know and I don't claim to be smart enough to know area. I've seen science of both sides that I just am not equipped to know or claim that I understand. I know for a fact that some people are born with both genitalia. I know for a fact that there are differences between male brains and female brains. So it doesn't seem outside of the realm of possibility that some people are born with the wrong brain. Like that doesn't seem outside of the realm of possibility for me. And the Bible verse that people use of God made them man and woman. Well, guess what? There are some people who are born with both genitalia. So I don't think you can use that one little clip bite to combat that side. On the other side, there's a lot of science that doesn't agree with you. There's a ton of science that says it's incredibly harmful to let children, especially teenagers, be making some of these choices. And yet everyone's a proponent of that these days, right? I mean, that's the whole secular thing. Both sides, to me, seem like they act like they know a lot more than they do. And that's where I am like, I try to stay out of it. I don't think I'm smart enough for some of the biblical scholars who clearly know more than I do, and for some of the scientists who clearly know more than I do. I tend to just stay out of it. But there's very few opinions that I'm like, I'll avoid someone because they had this opinion. We can disagree about almost anything, and I simply don't care. If you're going to go up and sing something that I want to hear, I will listen to it if I want to listen to it. I think where I draw the line is mostly in action. Of course, there are some opinions, like if you think Nazis are great, I'm not supporting you, But when you're getting into some of the actions, the Johnny Depp thing was a great example. I love Pirates of the Caribbean. When we all thought, or most of us thought, that he actually had done those things to Amber, I was like, okay, I might not watch a new Pirates if he's in it, but I'm not going to stop watching the old ones. That's sort of what the YouTuber was arguing for on her side, which is not our side, but I can understand the logic there, even if I disagree with it. It's the same type of reasoning that I was using with Johnny Depp. Luckily, now it looks like a lot of those things were lies, so I can like Johnny Depp again. And, I think what's funny is in Christian circles, there's a lot of cancel culture around cancel culture. Like, we just hate people for canceling things. Like, oh, well, the church actually started that. You know that, right? Like we're the ones who started that in the first place, calling people heretics and kicking them out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This whole religion needs to die now. That's sort of, that's the church's gig, that secular culture just kind of adapted. So you can't get too mad about it.
One of the things I laugh about is anytime that I hear Christians getting up in arms about influencer culture. Christians were doing influencer culture for years before.
Yeah, you just called it something else.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from as somebody who is a scientist. I think that you are treading in dangerous territory by saying that you don't know what you're looking at, and thus people are speaking outside of themselves and all of that. I really think that's very dangerous, because but regardless, this is an example, and one of the things that Josh and I have had to work through is how to disagree well with one another. For those of you that don't know, Josh and I did not start off as friends. We didn't really like each other very much, and it got ugly at first. Like that, Josh and I have had some knockdown dragouts, and we have come to the point now where we are partners in what we do through SG, right? We work together, we talk to each other nigh every day. And that had to come with purposefully getting past ourselves and being willing to say, there are some things that you state that I so incredibly disagree with.
Yeah.
But you are still my brother and I love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even beyond that, we've had conversations about the fact that like now beyond just being Christian brothers, we're friends.
Yeah, I'm so excited we're going to do a convention with my other podcast next year, and I'm going to get to see Joe. We're going to get to crack open a beer together. It's going to be great, even if we disagree the entire time that we're sharing a beer together.
Yeah.
Which we might, because he'll have an IPA and I'll have a stout.
Just if I wanted to eat a loaf of bread, I would just eat a loaf of bread anyway.
Oh, that's funny. So with your beer, with your Santa Claus, and even with your video game, if you think you don't want to support someone who's doing this hate, or if you are like, hey, have your opinion, I just here for the game, guess what? You can like what you like and don't be a jerk.
Right. Go in peace for everybody, because throughout this whole conversation, right, whether it's more of the playful side with me talking about Black Adam and Black Panther, or if it's this part of the conversation where it's heavier, weightier topics and stuff like that, we have done a very good job of probably, if you're listening to this, we've probably pissed you off. Go in peace. You know what I mean? Like that's wherever you land on this thing. Go in peace. If you can't support J.K. Rowling anymore because she's being a jerk to other people, because she's being a troll and all of those things, because she is fully exercising her FU money, then go in peace. If you still are going to buy Hogwarts, whatever, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Long before any of this, I was never really a Harry Potter.
Worst opinion today.
Yeah, there we go.
That's bravo.
Yeah. So but whatever. If you've never liked your stuff and you're like, can we talk about something else? Go in peace. If you're still going to read the books and watch the movies and do all the things, awesome. Go in peace. It's not that the fact of the matter is that we can all still come together and be community, even though we disagree about this stuff.
I think he's taking the Church of Unity message from me. He stole it.
Yep.
Oh man. Guys, I couldn't possibly agree more. All of it, to each your own. Of course, if you're going to get Hogwarts Legacy and you don't pay $10 extra for the Dark Arts package, you do have terrible, terrible ideas. Like, what is wrong with you? It's $10 more. You get to do the dark magic. You get to ride the necromancer horse thing. Come on.
And who wouldn't want to ride a necromancer horse? Come on, guys.
Right? I forget what those things are called, but man, it looks cool.
The Thestral?
Yeah, you can ride one in an open world concept. Just ride around on it, but only if you get the Dark Arts package. That's totally worth $10. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. This has been our longest What's New Yet, which, of course, if I'm here and Joe is here, it's going to take a minute. What we like to do for these, instead of giving a new recommendation, is recommend any of the things we talked about today. Just pick one that if they haven't checked it out, that they should check out. I know no one's checked mine out yet. Dark Arts package, Hogwarts Legacy. Go get it. All right, Joe, of the things we talked about, do you have anything you would recommend to them? DC, maybe?
100. If you have not watched it yet, you seriously need to go watch Black Panther. And seriously, I made jokes about, or not Black Panther, Black Adam. I made jokes about comparing the two, but don't go in comparing it to Black Panther. You will do the movie a disservice. It's a bad plan to say to try and compare it to anything else of like within the superhero genre. It's not a good idea. But go watch that, and if you haven't, go watch through the Snyder Cut, because it's long, but it's a beautiful movie.
Oh yeah. All right, Christian, what's your one thing to recommend from all of this just craziness today?
Well, I forgot that I didn't rate Violent Night, so I'm going to give that my 9 out of 10 for that one, for being your popcorn film. Nice. But as far as things we discussed today, mine would definitely go to the new DC slate that will eventually come along, because I am cautiously optimistic that Gunn will be able to make something. I don't want, MCU 2.0 from DC's side. I want them to make their own thing. I want them to take the time they need to build these characters up. So when they all appear together, I care, when the Atom is on the screen, when Guy Gardner is on the screen, or what have you. I want to
When we
care.
finally get a good Green Lantern, and they realize they should start with Jon Stewart, I will be super happy.
I actually
that,
don't
Lisa.
disagree with you. I think that you're going to have a hard time telling the full thing, telling the full expanse of Green Lantern without starting with Hal Jordan. But yeah, Jon Stewart's one of my favorite. Green Lantern.
Just start right in the middle of the what's it called, the war.
Oh, the Sinestro War.
Yeah, just start right in the middle of that. And just kind of, backtrack, make it a 7-hour movie. It's fine.
Hey.
People have proven we'll watch any length of DC film. Just do it. And with that, guys, go to systematicgeekology.org. Check out our store. Buy one of those Like What You Like shirts. It's worth it. Make sure you go to our Patreon. Check out that. We get 4 bonus episodes a month, and you get a discount on the store. So maybe do that first. And of course, guys, we want you all to do one extremely important thing for us, which is to remember that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priest. This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries Podcast Network.